What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. We have a new podcast platform, so we get a countdown when we start. Just gets me fired up, ready to discuss. Gabe and I, we are on the show. Man, we're going to dive into some fitness and some family stuff, maybe even a little bit of Bible talk, or at least what I have coming up in the next week. But good morning, Gabe. Good morning, good afternoon. Wherever you're listening to this from, we're just saying what's up.
Hell yeah, man. No, I'm excited. You put some good topics down, so let's dive in.
Gabe has two sick kids at home, so we need to bring in some high power mode. And
I don't know what part about how I've approached any part of this recording has given you the thought that I'm low power. I got 2 workouts in today. I redid an open workout in the morning. Yeah, I've been doing conditioning in the morning. I redid open workout 19.1 this morning. Was very satisfied with my score.
Wait, why did you do that?
Well, I've been doing a lot of wall balls and rowing because I can't run and I'm prepping for this high rocks. And if you remember, 19.1 was the 15-minute AMRAP, 19 wall balls, 19 cal row. And that was also programmed at CrossFit Garden City, Dennis's gym that my friends still go to. So they were talking shit in the group chat. So naturally I had to see what I could put up. It was fun, man. It's cool. Like I'm definitely not going to participate in the open this year. Those days are behind me, but it is cool to have those tests when you've done them in the past to do them over again. And like, I didn't go in there it was funny. I was remembering, I didn't go in there expecting to even match my score. Cause when I did that, I did it at NC Fit, Redwood City. Ariel was coaching Friday Night Lights. So the vibes were like 10 out of 10. I remember Emmanuel. You remember Emmanuel Dixon?
Oh, dude, he was
like
jacked.
Yelling in my face,
dude,
the entire workout.
Jacked he was? I mean, I'm sure he's still just as jacked.
Dude, he's still crazy jacked. So like, dude, it was literally like RP 12 when I did it the first time, and I came within, let's see, like 15 reps short of what I did in 2019 at 5 a.m. this morning with 2 sick kids. So I was happy with it.
15 reps, were those calories on the rower or were those wall balls?
Half and half. So it was 8 calories on the rower and a couple wall balls. So yeah, man, it was good. It was fun. But like I was saying before we hit record, I feel fine. I feel great. It's just there are a lot more things on my plate this morning because Ariel is actually the one that unfortunately feels pretty under the weather. So I'm trying my best to take stuff off her plate, take the kids as much as I can, help out in the morning, do everything that I can so she can like just chill. Cause obviously I have to come work and she can't, it's not like you can just call in sick on being mom. So that's why I'm just behind on some stuff time wise, but I feel fucking great. So let's just clarify that.
Yeah. Just for the clarity's sake. Yeah. You can't call in sick as a parent, that is one thing I've learned over the years, right? Like if you feel like crap, like that's one of the reasons why I work so hard to stay as healthy as I do, because, Ashley's a little bit under the weather right now because she was traveling and you got to pick up different things that are going on and communicate and all that kind of stuff. But like, if you're down for the count, dude, you can't work. You can't do things to the kids. Like it sucks. There's so many layers to it. It's no longer like impacting you individually. It's impacting everybody when you're down for the count. And so doing everything I can, like, so for example, I have Jocko, like Cold War. I've been pounding Jocko Cold War, just cause Ashley wasn't feeling good. I'm like, dude, I can't get sick. So I'm like pounding Jocko Cold War while simultaneously taking my multivitamin from them and doing all these different things because I don't want to get sick. Hitting the sauna, I'm like, all right. Anyways, it's a good mentality to have, right? Like you want to do everything in your power all throughout the year to be as healthy as possible so you could avoid, if you're on an airplane and somebody's sick next to you, hopefully you have a fighting chance of not getting sick too. Now there's always exceptions. Dude, remember in COVID days, man? Oh God, bro, I would get tested. I got tested like twice a week for COVID, right? I don't know. You remember these? Like I would go into you remember?
Of course. Of course. Who doesn't remember COVID? You had a very different COVID experience than I did, though.
Dude, I would go in twice a week to the fairgrounds here to get tested because at the time I was super worried about my daughter getting COVID because of the leukemia.
Sure.
And dude, and so then, you start getting a little bit more comfortable. I'll never forget. I go to jiu-jitsu and I get COVID from a guy at jiu-jitsu. And dude, Ashley was so mad at me. And no matter, but anyways, that's a good example where like, I don't care how healthy you are. If someone you're rolling jiu-jitsu with is super sick, you're probably going to get super sick too. So that was my COVID story.
Yeah.
Oh man, she was so pissed at me.
As close as you can get to someone that isn't like your direct family.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Yeah. But anyways, back to topic at hand. You were talking about sick and everyone. I wanted to talk about this idea of, I'll give you a real life example and then we could kind of talk through it. So one of the posts we're going to put out on social media is about building up confidence in young men to avoid bullying other people. And I think that it's really important that through sport, through doing hard things, through even like learning wilderness skills, there's all kinds of ways you could build up confidence in a young man. But the other day at school, this is an interesting one, right? The other day at school, the boys are playing football. And dude, they get super competitive. And some boys are more competitive than others, especially at this age right now, that 10, 11, 12, they're starting to separate between more competitive, less competitive. And Kaden is very competitive. And one of the things I'm trying to work with him on is understanding the difference between being competitive and wanting to win and being cocky or arrogant or being put offish. And I think you need a little bit of that cockiness to be successful at sports. I think you need to have that little kind of dude, I am legit. But at the same time, you don't need to talk about it. And so that's something we've been working on. And it's fun for me as a dad looking at like a 10, 11-year-old and watching them kind of learn how to communicate with other boys and how to be that guy who could be competitive, be whatever, but not come off too arrogant. I think he's kind of finding that place. Anyways, so him and another kid, this kid plays hockey at a really high level. So he's legit. This kid's legit. He's a tough kid. I guess they got in a little bit of a little tussle, and I guess the kid pushed Kaden, and Kaden ended up arm dragging him to the floor, and then it ended, and that was it. And I talked to Kaden about it later, and I was like, "Hey, what happened?" I guess this kid was calling him names, he was calling him names, and then I guess it escalated to a push, and then he pulled him to the ground. And I guess the reason why I'm bringing this up is I don't know what's right and what's wrong here. What I do know is that when I talked to Kaden about it later, I spoke about dude, it's not okay to put your hands on anybody ever, but you also need to defend yourself. And you need to recognize that if this continues, it could get worse and worse and worse. And you can't allow that to happen, especially when someone escalates it. But at the same time, you have to be aware that you and I grapple on a regular basis. I'm 2 or 3 times the size as a person you're going to be grappling with who's your age. And I'm substantially stronger, so I can handle this. So the level of intensity you put into me is not the same level of intensity you should ever put into anybody at your age or your size. And so anyways, it was just a good teaching moment. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to learn how to regulate that. And you can't be acting out of emotion. You need to be controlled. So it was a good teaching moment for us. And I think we kind of talked through it. I wanted to share that here because I'm sure other parents are going to either have to go through it or have already gone through it. And we could dive into it.
How receptive is he to these talks? Do you feel like he gets it? Do you feel like it's kind of yeah, Dad, yeah, okay. Or do you not know? And it's kind of one of those things. I'm curious with you being, years ahead of conversations I know I'm going to have, and I'm sure all dads have either had to have or will have to have, because I'm curious if it is something where you're all right, he kind of got that, or you just don't know, but you have to have the conversation anyway. And just through repetition, maybe it'll eventually get ingrained.
I think it's reps. So take, for example, sports, and every kid is different, right? Dude, there's other kids in his class that aren't as competitive, aren't as athletic, aren't as big. And they also have to be concerned about developing skills so that they don't get bullied in the future. For Kaden, it's dude, it's just this fine line. And maybe I'm too much about it. Maybe I'm too overboard. But every sport, every event, every activity, I'm just observing, not even from performance, but how he acts. And every single time he's on the field, practice, games, anything, I'll always talk to him after about how he felt he did as a sportsman. And maybe I'm overboard, right? Maybe I'm too. But I think that in this particular situation, I've just created this vernacular where him and I will have consistent conversation. He knows that when something happens, we're going to have a discussion about it. I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to whatever. I'm just going to ask him hey, what happened? How do you feel about it? Do you feel like you could have been a better sportsman? Do you feel like you could have handled that any differently? And I just feel like it's created this open line of communication. So that's been good. But in this particular case, it's tough because how do you coach a kid through something like that where if they get pushed, if you say, hey, don't push them back, right? I think there's value there. Okay. All right. But I also think that boys are are going to maybe take advantage of that weakness, right? And they'll continue to pursue it. And it could get worse and worse and worse. It actually might be the best thing for all parties that you get pushed, you pushed them back, and the beef is squashed, right? Because there was this friction point and it was alleviated. Whereas if you continue to let it go, maybe that's not the right route either. But I also think that Kaden needs to learn, like, dude, it's not okay to act in that way. So I just feel like right now I'm like in this stage of my life, right? 10, 11, where the boys are going to start being a little bit more physical, a little bit more competitive. And I'm learning how to cope with, like, how to coach that, because I think some of that is actually really healthy. Like when you watch these kids at sports, healthy. Super healthy. When you watch these kids at sports, there's some friction. There's some crap talking. I think some of that is healthy. But then at what point does it become unhealthy? That's currently where I'm at. But what I rest assured on is the fact that I'm even aware of it makes me think that, like, maybe we're on the right path, you know, like that I'm not trying to be one way or the other, trying to be open-minded, but coach.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And I don't think the sportsmanship stuff is too much at all. I think the fact that you're having a constant conversation about it is great to me, because then if it ever becomes something that, like, would really need to be talked about, like, you've put the guard down of, like, this is just something we always talk about. So it's not received in this way of, like, oh, dad's mad at me or dad's disappointed me. It's just like, this is something we always talk about. I also think you're getting in front of what is possibly, like, the most important aspect of sports. Cause I mean, at the end of the day, dude, like, Kaden's going to be a beast, period. Like, he has the genetics. He, like, works super hard. He's started super early. Like, he's just an athletic kid. Like, you don't have to worry about, like, oh, like, you know, did you do this right at practice? Like, that stuff is almost like going to be taken care of, or is getting taken care of by the coach, right? Like, the coach is there to help them with those skills. I think that your job, our job as fathers, is to be present in the intangibles, because those lessons are a lot harder to teach. And so it's completely unrealistic for a coach to teach those in a meaningful way to a group of, 12, 20 boys, whatever. That's our job. Our job isn't to show them how to, like, throw a curveball. Our job is to show them how to, like, treat everyone with respect. And, when you hit a home run, run around the bases like you've done it 100 times, like, don't flip the bat, no showboating, none of that. I love that stuff. So no, dude, I don't think you're doing it too much at all. And I've been to enough games to see that, like, Kaden carries himself the way that, like, I would be pumped if that was my son, and I think that you should be proud of that for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, I think, for dads who are listening to take into consideration. Like, I'm at a lot of the practices and almost every game. I mean, I can't think of a game that I've missed in years, and I pride myself in that. Sometimes if I'm traveling, I might miss one or two, but I think being present there, I never talk about the actual sport of whatever they're doing, football, this, except for strength conditioning. I'll talk about that. But to your point, I think in youth sports right now, from my experience, at least being in the Bay Area, California, many of the coaches are not talking about those intangibles we're talking about. They're talking about the sport. And right or wrong, right? Like, so, I mean, it's probably, most people would probably agree, like, yeah, dude, that's their lane. They should be talking about baseball, football. Actually, in football, they have a high school kid that's coaching the team, which I think is really cool from a leadership perspective. But anyways, you have all these different sports, right? And the coaches are just focused on, hey, this is how you throw, this is how you bat, this is how you do this. They're not really talking about, they're talking about sportsmanship at a very high level, in particular with the parents. Like, they really talk with the parents about, what are the rules from the sideline, because some parents get crazy. But I think our role as parents, and I'm kind of leaning more into this, is just like, dude, I'm just the guy who's like, I'm not even going to talk to you about baseball. I just want to talk to you about life skills that you can learn through sport. So the push at the school is a good example of, like, I'm not here to tell anybody how to parent. All I do know is that if you have open lines of communication and you're thinking about it through different lenses and what role my kid played in that and what can he learn from it, and take an extreme ownership in that, like, he must have done something to create this emotion. How can he learn from that? That's my take.
And another thing that you mentioned that's where we've talked about it on past podcasts, but it's been a while, is, the idea behind the Matheny Manifesto and that letter, which is, dude, you can't as a parent stand there and lecture your kid on good sportsmanship if you're the one chirping at the ref, like, arguing calls, like getting, super upset at like the kids underperforming or like the other team, whatever. If you're doing that stuff, like you've already lost. And that, yes, like, we can't tell, like, I'm not going to tell anyone how to parent their kids, but like at the end of the day, a universal truth that I'm sure we can all agree on is like, you have to set the example for what you want. Otherwise, on what leg are you going to stand on to be like, hey man, that wasn't cool. It's like, yeah, dad, you're the one in the stands, like yelling at the ref.
Oh yeah, dude. So we had a team meeting. So, this is real life. This is life, right?
IRL.
In real life, is that what it is?
Yeah.
This is IRL. Is that like a slang term? Is that what the kids say?
I think that's
these
what
days?
the kids say nowadays. Yeah.
Oh, Liz would know. So she's well aware of that kind of stuff. So IRL in real life, right now, what's currently happening in my life is Ava's, getting ready to get accepted in high school. Kaden is currently doing flag football and 2 levels of baseball. So he's doing travel ball and little league. So he's doing both. So every day of the week he has a sport, which is great. He should have double that if I had it my way. Got to run him. But anyways, we had our team meeting for the first sport, and the coach comes up, and I know this guy really well. He's a really, really, really good guy. And he has a team meeting with all the parents, and he's like, dude, we don't talk about, he's just like, look, this is the way we're going to run things. And we have a 0 tolerance, 0, not 1, not 2, 0 tolerance for you saying anything to the refs, because the refs in the little league are actually kids. They're 1 year older than the players playing. And he made it very clear, like, dude, whether it's under your breath, whether it's whatever, no tolerance for anything against the umps. And he just really set the expectation, like, hey, this is what we're going to do this season. The first 6 games, we're not trying to win. We're just going to run everybody around. That's the expectation. Second 6 games, the expectation is we're trying to win to get good seeding for playoffs. So if your child isn't playing as much or but like, I just think it was really cool from a leadership perspective that he had a 0 tolerance, just drew the line. And then he clearly explained the expectations to the season. And it's something I'm thinking about as a parent, like, how do you create these beautiful guardrails and just set expectations and early and often so that there is no ambiguity, right? So if something comes up, it's like, dude, we talked about that. That's a 0 tolerance, And so that was a cool meeting we just had last week. That was a good learning lesson.
Yeah, man, no gray area, clear expectations in everything with your relationship with your spouse, with your kids, professional relationships at work. I mean, dude, I love clear expectations. You tell me exactly what you need from me and we're rocking and rolling. When there's gray area, there's always room. I think that it's always easy to assume what someone else wants from you. Again, whether it's someone on your team, whether it's your spouse, even whether it's your kids, man. I mean, we've talked about this specifically with relationships. Things change. Like what Ariel needs from me this year compared to last year because of the age the kids are in, because of like what we have going on in life is very different. And it's so easy to assume that like, hey, you needed me to do these things last year, so I'm just going to keep doing that. If you don't have a conversation, if you don't check in, that's how resentment builds, and you can just nip it in the bud, man. So clear expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we put up a post on social media, I mean, when this releases, I don't know, a week or 2 ago, about the single biggest decision you're going to make is who you decide to spend your life with, right? Your spouse. And I think you need to take a lot of time with that decision. And if you've already made that decision, you're listening to this podcast, like, recognize like you burn the boats, bro. Do everything you can to retain that relationship as much as you possibly can. And it would be my goal to this podcast. Like, we talk a lot about kids. We talk a lot about families, especially the episodes with you and me, because we connect over that, obviously. We talk a lot about training, of course. But I would say that like success for me on this podcast would be if someone reached out to me. Actually, reach out to me. Let me know. We get emails all the time about this kind of stuff. But on a deeper level, it's like, dude, we want to inspire guys to train. But we want to inspire them to level up in other areas as well. And training is a vehicle to do that. And this podcast, success for me would be if someone messages us and says, dude, I've been listening to you guys for years or whatever it is. And I started training and I saw how it impacted my relationships with my kids, how it impacted my relationship with my wife. It's never been better. It's like, fuck yeah, that's the goal. Like, because wherever you're at today, it could get better. And that's including for me. And I'm constantly asking myself, where is those levels of improvement? And I talked about this the other day, Gabe. Like, dude, I turned 40 this year. I feel better physically today than I have in the last 10 years. I feel really good. And it's because I'm locked in certain areas. But that correlates into the way I show up. Because if I'm waking up, dude, if I'm waking up before the alarm hits, if I'm working out, if I'm coming back in, if I'm energized, if I'm feeling right, dude, that's going across everything else I'm doing. And so guys, if you're listening to this, like, dude, train hard, show up, message us, let us know how it goes.
And we've already gotten some of those emails, man, and it fires me up so much. And even getting those types of emails aside, like one thing that I've said before, and I'll say it again, is this podcast has significantly helped me. Like, I would be one of the guys emailing in, and it's the conversations we've had with certain guests. And it's also the fact that, like, I feel a responsibility of when I get the emails, and the fact that, like, people are listening and, like, you know, in many ways, like, looking up to some of the things we're saying. Like, how can I then go out in real life and not live the things that I'm preaching, right? Like, that would be the most hypocritical thing on the planet. So the podcast has helped me because I get incredible conversations with you, with Dennis, with MDB, with all of our guests, but also because, like, man, like, I'm constantly thinking about the things that we talk about on this show and having to go execute on it, because if I'm not doing it, how can I expect anyone else to put this stuff into practice, you know? And that's kept me very accountable on a lot of things over the past year and a half, like on a lot of things. I owe a lot to this podcast, man. So it's definitely both ways.
Well, the Q&A episodes, we had a question come in about how do you stay motivated when you're training alone? Okay. And one idea, are we supposed to save this segment for later or something? Or
Jason's so bad at the segments. We'll just do it now. But just to let people know, we put out a sticker on social media. We're going to do a segment on, we have the weekly physical challenges with the home team. With the guest, we'll have a segment there too. But the segment for us is going to be one Q&A. We used to have the Q&A episodes. I think a lot of people enjoyed that, but we moved and transitioned those to home team episodes, which have been awesome. But we still want to answer questions that we're getting from people. So yes, we have a segment where we're going to answer a question here. And we can do it now because it was a good question. It's a good segue. But the question was, you were alluding to it, like, how do you stay motivated training alone? And I know that you train with guys, and it's your goal now to train more, you know, shoulder to shoulder with other guys. I would say 90% of the time, unless it's Ariel coming into the gym with me, train alone. But yeah, I'm curious, like, how do you encourage someone to stay motivated if their only option is to work out alone?
I mean, so I was thinking about this the other day. I actually put out a video on the Train Hard app about accountability and the way, okay, I'm going to go at this 2 angles. Angle number 1 is you send a message out to 10 of your friends and you say, hey, every day at this time, I'm going to be training. And the reason why it's so important is that even if they don't show up, you think they might show up. So that's like a really unique angle that you could take. You send a message out to 10 of your friends. You say, hey, come visit me at the gym. Come visit me at the garage. Come visit me at the park. You name it. At this every day at 6 a.m. Every day. And dude, you might show up there and 50% of the time, nobody comes. But then that one time where you don't go and they show up, you feel like a total asshole. That's what's going to keep you inspired to do it. So that's one accountability tool, is that if you have a group around you, just say, hey, I'm holding myself accountable Monday through Friday. I'm going to be doing this at 6 a.m. And it's actually been really cool because you never know who's going to show up. That's one little angle, little trick you could do. The other is just recognizing that, like, dude, once you build the habit, it gets easier. So like the first week, the first 2 weeks, the first 3 weeks that you're training, especially alone, it's going to be hard, just like anything. But after a while, it just becomes second nature. And recognizing that, like, doing something even at an RP of 7 is better than not doing anything at all. And so recognizing when you could burn the candle, like, dude, just crush it. Maybe you're around other people. Maybe when you're solo, you're getting in a 7 or an 8, which is still better than nothing. I think having that recognition, I think, is key. I train a lot with other people. I train sometimes by myself. It's hard for me to get the same stimulus by myself as I do with other people, but that's okay. You don't need to have 10s all the time. It's kind of like the logic there.
Yeah, I think that's all good advice. For me, because honestly, my only option is really to work out alone. Like, the motivation comes from, and we talked a little bit about this on our last home team episode, I'm just someone that thrives with a plan and a goal. And that to me is enough. Like, if I'm training for something, whether it's a specific hypertrophy goal, whether it's like, you know, training for this marathon, and there's a plan on paper, there isn't an option. Like, it would weigh on me and stress me out and ruin my day if I don't do it. So it's just that simple. Like I won't get good sleep, whatever it is, but the alarm goes off and it's like, I have to do this because otherwise it's going to drive me nuts that like a step in the plan was missed. And I know that I'm unique in many ways, but I also think that I'm not, in that I think that there are a lot of people out there that the hardest step is putting something on the calendar, something. You want to do your first high rocks. You want to run a half marathon. You want to, sign up for the open possibly, whatever it is.
You want to lose 10 pounds.
You want to lose 10 pounds because you have an event coming up, or it's just something that you want. Like, put something in writing in the calendar, set up a plan, reverse engineer it to get there, sign up for one of our programs, whatever it is. But I think that there's so much power. And it's funny because Dennis mentioned this the other day. He was someone that, definitely consistent, definitely training, like every day getting out there, signed up for the strongman competition. And he was like, dude, the second I did that, like just.
Yeah, he was ready.
More focused in his training. And that applies, I think, for most people, maybe not everyone. I know that some people, that's just not a motivating factor. But for me, it would definitely be easier for me to skip a day if I was like, like maybe not feeling good, or like the kids were up a bunch or whatever, if I wasn't following a plan, which is why it's always so important for me to like be in a current plan. And that doesn't always have to be that I'm training for like a specific race. That could be that like, hey, right now I'm doing a cut and like that's really important, whatever it is. But like I'm always shooting towards something that when you take a step back in the grand scheme of things is trying to make me more jacked or train for a race or healthier. And that to me is enough to get me out there, because for me, like where we live and stuff, like it wouldn't really be an option to be like,
could you take some people from the gym though? Could you message? I'm just curious. Like, could you text 7 guys that you know from the gym and just be like, or girls, anybody, and just say, hey, would anybody want to come over, or is it just not possible?
2 things. One, selfishly, I prefer, because I'm following my plan, to do my own thing, because I'd rather it not derail what I have written down that day to accommodate for other people selfishly. Like if I'm being 100% honest, like if I'm supposed to do mile repeats at this pace, nothing would drive me more nuts than for someone to join me and us have to like figure out something else to do or whatever. That's just selfishly, like training is my time and I'm very protective of that time. That's one. Now for a couple days, could there be some flexibility there? Yeah. But at least given like where we are now, I would feel really bad committing to something like that, because honestly, like, dude, I don't know what's going to go down in the morning. Like I could say, hey, meet me at 6 a.m. no matter what. Dude, if Shay is up and, like I need to help out, like I need to push my workout later. I need to make it 30 minutes instead of 60 minutes. Like there's just things that like are outside of my control, and they're not excuses. I'm going to work out anyway, but it would be tough for me to be like, hey, 6 a.m. every day, rain or shine. Like I'm getting there at that time. Like I'm going to work out, but might be 6, might be 5, might be 4:45, might be whatever. Sometimes I wake up a little earlier than my alarm and I'm like, dude, I'm just going to go out there and get it done. Cause then the probability of me coming back in before Shay wakes up is higher, which is always good.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's a different vantage point, right? Like
for sure.
Dude, my kids are not going to interrupt my,
for sure.
So it's just different. And I live in an area, it's much easier to get to where I'm at. But in either case, I think you got to find what works for you, because whether you're training alone or with other people, it doesn't matter. The thing that matters is that you have to make a commitment to training, because you have no other option. Like you have no other option as a dad, as a husband, as a man. Like there is no plan B. Like it's plan A and plan A only. Like I'm going to be fit. I'm going to be capable. That's the goal. So how are you going to get there? And you can do it alone. You can do it with a group. You can do whatever the hell you want. For us, obviously at the men's club, it's grown tremendously. And I'm trying to see how that, I've been doing a lot of thought process on that about where we take that in the future, because like how big can you get it? I mean, I don't know, man. At some point we're going to run out of room, and then what does it turn into? So it's something I've been putting a lot of thought into as of lately.
That's a cool problem to have. The other thing that I would just add to that is, while I don't necessarily work out with other people, I mean, the perfect example is this morning. The reason I did that workout was because I still stay in touch with my fitness friends, and it's very similar in that it's the competitiveness and the camaraderie of like, hey, they did this workout and they're talking shit and they're like, hey, Gabe, like, you know, what can you do on this? Like, you've been doing these movements, like, you know, and I wouldn't have done something that was honestly like that hard or that uncomfortable, especially super early in the morning, had it not been for this group of guys that I have that we still connect with over fitness in a way that like keeps us accountable because we're, you know, working out at least to like a higher level because we're, you know, trying to talk shit. The shit talk is a great accountability tool.
I mean, I guess if someone like really challenged me, I would do that workout again, right? 1919. But like for me, yeah, like dude, the way we've been programming force lately, it's been something that's been new for me and I've really enjoyed it. Like this morning, I did tempo shoulder press into weighted lunges, like barbell back squat lunges with the weight on your back, whatever. And then bent over rows and push-ups and for an AMRAP. And it's like the old me would have finished that and been like, dude, that was okay. The 39-year-old me is like, damn, I got in a lot of volume. I got in 100 plus push-ups. I got in a bunch of these weighted lunges. I got in a bunch of bent over rows. My heart rate got elevated to like a, 6 or 7. Like I feel good. And then yesterday I did a bunch of conditioning. So I'm looking at it more in terms of the overall plan versus just like a singular workout as of lately. And it's been a lot of fun. I like those style of workouts now.
From a like general like capability and health perspective, and this is something we should dive into deeper on a home team episode with Dennis.
With the Huberman that we were talking about.
Yeah, it's just like you need to work on these energy systems, and you're better off working in them separately in some ways. And I know that kind of that a little bit goes in the face of like the traditional like CrossFit, but it also doesn't. In that, like if you go back to like the CrossFit programming lecture, like back in the day, it was kind of like, something long, something short, strength only, take an off day, Yeah. It's just that like, it's gotten almost bastardized so much through years and years. And also like, taking that and applying it to like a for-profit gym model, 60-minute classes. Like I think that has morphed what the programming was maybe meant to be from like a purist standpoint. But I think what we do with Force, what Dennis does with Force and does an incredible job is without the complexity of CrossFit, like almost bringing it back to that, but then also giving it even more structure so that across 2 weeks, you're touching on all these different anaerobic conditioning, aerobic conditioning, intervals, full body strength in a way that just makes sense so that you're like, hey, you're doing really good work for this system, but then you're going to let it recover. You're going to work on these other systems and you'll revisit it at the sweet spot where you've like recovered, but now you can put another brick on that tower. Dude, it's awesome. I love it.
Me too. I mean, I'm super excited. We actually have a call about it tomorrow to go over some, kind of like what the plan is for the future there. But I've been really enjoying it. I mean, I'm doing it every day, and it's been awesome. So that's been a good kind of change in my training. Hey, let me ask you a question. This morning I had a protein shake, and then I ate eggs. And dude, I've had like a lot of protein today. I feel very protein synthesized. Like I'm ready to go, my muscles are recovering as I'm talking to you. But I had a protein shake, which I normally never drink a protein shake, but I had that because it just sounded good. And then I had 3 eggs and bacon and whatever. Do protein shakes count as getting 50 grams of protein in the morning?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And if it's something where the convenience of that allows you to hit that number, great. The caveat to that, because like the principles that we put out in TH5, they're exactly that. They're principles. Like you should follow those over anything, but that doesn't mean that there's no room for improvement or ideal versions of hitting those, right? So what I mean by that is if you're hitting 40 to 50 grams in your 3 main meals and possibly a high protein snack, if you're a bigger individual and higher activity level, you're good. Like great. That's like more than most, and it's going to solve a lot of problems. Now, can you do better than that? Of course. And where protein shakes are something that like you have to be a little bit more, intentional about is if you're specifically trying to lose weight. You're only going to lose weight if you're in a caloric deficit. Like that's just true. You can't convince me otherwise. You're going to make your life easier if you get your protein from whole foods because that's going to fill you up more. 40 grams of protein from a shake versus 40 grams of protein from, a little bit of lean turkey, maybe a couple eggs, some cottage cheese, you're going to feel very different levels of satiated with both of those. And if you're someone that's trying to minimize how many calories you're consuming throughout the day, minimize the cravings for snacks and all of that stuff, obviously you should go with the option that's going to make you feel fuller. Now, if you're not super concerned about losing weight, burning fat, then you can have a lot of your protein be liquid. With all that being said, I don't think anyone really needs more than one protein shake a day. But that's kind of the nuanced answer to that. Do protein shakes count? 100%. Should it be your, choice of preference, specifically if you're trying to, burn a little bit of fat? Probably not.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I like it. We have a call today with Customs and Border Protection about that exact same thing. So that'll be fun.
I'm so fired up.
Yes, we have Customs and Border Protection. And then, we have some really good stuff with San Jose PD that I'm excited to talk through on the show as we evolve that. That's very exciting stuff. I'm actually going out to the selection for Customs and Border Protection SRT. That'll be another podcast episode just talking about what the selection process looks like, because it's like a multi-week, 3-week process that they go through to go from being a traditional Border Patrol customs agent and then going through selection for this special response team. And so we get to go out there and go check it out. You should come.
Is that what we went to the end of last time in San Antonio?
That was after they had already been selected. So that was called...
So selection process for that group happened already.
Yeah.
And this was like their first something after that.
Yeah.
Got it.
So basically what I'm going to is I'm going to go to the selection and then I'm going to go to the first thing that you were talking about that we went to. So that basically I get to watch selection, go see how they look. And then I get to go and support and actually lay a framework of fitness for them once they enter the team. So that's exciting.
Where's selection?
They're both in Texas.
Got it.
Where exactly? I don't know. And I don't know if I can even say. So, yeah. but
classified.
Yeah, it's classified documents. But hey, I wanted to tell you. So, Sal DeStefano from Mind Pump, remember, we've talked about him and the iron sharpens iron. Remember that? The shirt?
Of course.
So he texted me, when did he text me? Text me Friday or Monday or something. He goes, hey man, I'm hosting a Bible study at my house on Friday the 7th. I think it's Friday the 7th. If you want to come. And I thought it was this upcoming Friday and I'm coaching all night this Friday. So I'm like, oh, I can't do it then. So then but then he's like, no, the next Friday. And it took me a minute. I didn't accept it. I just had his text waiting there because it's at 7 p.m. on a Friday. I'm like, damn. I was like, Ashley's not going to love me being gone at 7 p.m. on a Friday. And I came up with all these excuses in my head, right? Of why I shouldn't go to a Bible study. I didn't know anybody. I don't know. I came up with all these excuses. And then finally I told myself, I was like, dude, I've never done anything like this before. I got invited from a friend of mine. It's an hour of my time. Dude, just what are we doing? Why would you not say yes to this? And so I just said yes. And so they sent me a group chat with a group of people that we're starting with a book called The Prodigal God. Recovering the heart of Christian faith. And I'll let you know how it goes. But the reason why I'm bringing that up on the podcast is because I'm asking myself, why was my initial reaction? I didn't want to go. I was yeah, it's Friday night. I want to be with the kids. I want to be with Ashley. But dude, I got invited from a friend. It's an hour of my time, maybe 2 hours. It could potentially change my life in a positive way or impact me in a positive way. It surely will not impact me negatively. So why was I apprehensive about it? So I wanted to share that here because I'm sure there's other men out there, other women who listen to this show who maybe have a similar experience. Maybe not when it comes to a Bible study. I'm not saying that. It's just something, right? Their friend invited them to go do something and they're hesitant, but they know it's the good thing. But they're like, nah, dude, just do it. Just do it.
The resistance with this stuff has always been fascinating to me, and I can't nail down kind of what is at the root of it. If you don't mind me asking, would Ashley have any interest in going with you?
I don't think so. No. I asked her. She doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Maybe if she had, I think it would have been different for me.
For sure.
But dude, it's similar to fitness, bro. It's it's first off, when we first, I mean, well, we're a bad example because we started dating when we were 14. So like, it's hard for me to say this, but like when we were even all the years, like we didn't get married in a church, which caused some contention in our family. Like we've never been that way, right? Even though our kids go to private school or whatever. So like that's not what we signed up for, right? We didn't sign up for that together. And so I'm exploring it more. And so I'm being sensitive and understanding that she isn't exploring it right now. And that's okay because we didn't sign up together like that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. It's very much potentially even more sensitive than the fitness stuff, right? Like it's not something that with someone as close as your spouse and honestly anything, I think it's obviously more sensitive, feels more private for people, to be like, hey, this is something you should do. I think that like what we can do and what a lot of, the incredible guests we've had on the podcast have done is like share their story and share the impact it's had on them. And like, that's the extent I think to which you can encourage people to go that route, even if you feel like that's important. One thing that I was thinking about before when we were talking about, what were you talking about? I forget, but it just came back into my head now that you were talking about Ashley and how you guys have been together for so long. Like we're both, you a lot more than me, are so removed from the dating scene and dating now. And now I remember, I remember what
very, very removed. I'm very removed.
Very removed. I remember what it was that sparked this thought in me is when you were saying that like, hey, the biggest decision you're ever going to make, the most important decision is who you decide to spend the rest of your life with. And you said, and you should take a lot of time making that decision because it's a very big decision. One thing that I've heard on different podcasts, and I think this makes sense, like one of the reasons that it seems dating is so tough now is, and I'm curious your opinion, is that there's so many options available.
Yep.
That I almost, and I don't think you said this giving it too much thought, so that's why I'm curious your thoughts. I don't think that I think that people are taking too much time to make the decision. They're almost like they're putting too much weight on the commitment of finding that person. Whereas I think the best thing to do and something that, might be just a better way is to just commit to someone and like grow together, because I think that one of the things that's making dating very hard now, and there's studies and stuff that like, point all this out, is that people have all these options. So they're looking for like literally the person that like ticks off everything on their list, like the perfect person, because they can easily just, swipe if it's not the perfect match. And that sets an unrealistic expectation for this like ideal person you're going to find. And also like if you're so rigid in who you are by the time you do meet, you don't like grow together as a couple. I was talking about this with Ariel the other day. Like I am a completely different person now than I was when we met, even though we didn't meet as young as you guys did. But who I've become is in large part due to like us growing together. It's all been like a give and take and compromise of like the things that she likes in me and me trying to get rid of the things that she doesn't love in me and like trying to like, find that balance. And I think that that's a reason that, we've gotten this far. And I feel like we have a really good foundation to go all the way. And like, we're both on the same page about burning the boats and all that good stuff. And I know that that's unfortunately not the case for a lot of like young people specifically and young couples. And I think that it kind of boils down to, and I don't know how to fix this or like what the explanation is, but like, yes, this is the most important decision you ever make, but also don't overthink it. Don't take too long taking, like just dive in, make the commitment and like figure it out with someone that like, is not good enough. Like it's not settling, but it's like not having this unrealistic expectation that you're going to find the person that's going to be absolutely perfect.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is when I say take your time, I think what I mean by that, and again, I'm so removed from this, like I only live this through like my sister-in-law and like my family, but like the dating apps are so quick, right? So you go out on a date, maybe something is kind of off. You're like, fuck it. I'm going to go to the next person. I'm going to go to the next person. I'm going to go to the next person. So if you take your time too long there, I don't know if that's the right move, right? Because you're never going to find perfect on a date. But once you find someone you think you could really like burn the boats with, I think you should probably take your time. But then again, I know people who are in relationships now who they got into those relationships and they're in like their late 30s, right? When they already knew they'd been through all these relationships. And so quote unquote, they had taken their time with a bunch of people, but as soon as they found the one, boom, 3 months, married, done. So I don't know, man. I think every person is going to be situational and independent, but like what I do know is that you got to communicate once you decide that's the person, like you're locked in. And I guess what I mean by take the time is like, don't make that decision lightly. If you still decide like this is the way to go. Yeah, dude, you bring up a really good point. I don't know. Maybe we need to have like a relationship expert on who could drive into this, because I'm so removed from even thinking through that lens. Like, and I recognize that.
And again, like the only reason that I care, because obviously I don't care for myself, is like we have kids.
Oh yeah.
That are going to date. And like, how do you, in this world that's so different now with, you know, access to so many people online and whatever, like, how do you then as a father, like give Kaden advice about dating or Ava advice about dating? Like that's, and I know that like I'm so much further from that than you are, but that's the lens to which I'm curious about these things. Cause I mean, I'm never going to date again, but shit, like if that's such a big decision, you know, like how do you help your kids like navigate those waters in a world that's so different?
I don't know. And then dude, like,
I don't know either.
I mean, so Ava turns 14 in a month. Or a couple months. So like, dude, I'm not like, I'm not far. I'm in it. And it's like, oh, man, you know what? We will continue to talk about this on the podcast. And over time, I'll let you guys know what I'm learning, because I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot.
Who would be a good person to talk to about this?
Kelly Starrett.
That's what we need to brainstorm.
Kelly Starrett has a different take on it, right? Like he used to have, actually, I'd be really curious how he feels about it now. Cause he used to let his daughter, who was, you know, in high school, whatever, and like the boyfriend, like they were super close, and like he would let him sleep over, and like he was like a father figure to this boy, like they were really close, but they both said like, hey, when we go to college, we're gonna like go our own ways. Like we should have Kelly on and talk about dating with your, because he has 2 daughters.
Yeah, it was wild. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, dude, this is the world we live in, man. We got to be able to evolve with it. It's like AI, you know. Like maybe dating's gonna be gone and just AI is gonna tell you who you need to date, you know? Oh man. Dude, all right. Well, I will keep you guys all apprised on the Prodigal God for those who are interested in that. You know, on this show, we just talk about things that interest me and interest Gabe and interest ourselves. And if this is something that you're interested in, right, let's dive in a little bit deeper. I'll continue to share that. But most importantly, right, for everybody listening, you know, if you get value from these shows, we want to impact more men, more women. We want to make a bigger impact. Just share the episodes that resonate with you. There's something about different episodes, whether it's guests or the home team episodes, or maybe it's Gabe and I. If there's something that resonates, share it with a friend and be like, hey, dude, check this out. Even for me on our own show, I share our own show regularly with friends. Like, for example, the one with Blokes about blood work. I've shared that a ton of times because I think that an area of improvement for men is not recognizing their blood work. And so a buddy of mine actually is getting his blood work done right this minute because he hasn't been sleeping at night. And I was like, yeah, dude, maybe it's your testosterone. Maybe it's your hormones. He's like, really? That could affect it? I'm like, fuck yeah. So if you haven't gotten your blood work done, make sure to check out the podcast show notes and use the code JK Podcast for 50% off. I wasn't expecting to make that pitch, Gabe, but it just organically came up. So check out the podcast show notes. We're friends of Blokes, and you get 50% off with JK Podcast. Our incentive is to save you some money and get some blood work back. That's it.
It's the best $75 you'll spend, hands down.
It's the best $75 you're going to spend. Dude, just get the work done. All right, brother. Well, hey, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope the kids feel better. Hope Ariel feels better. For all of you listening, appreciate you guys. Keep training hard. Keep getting after it. Stay on the path. And we'll see you guys again next week for another incredible episode.